This episode of the Citadel Cafe is brought to you by listeners like you. Visit patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe to find out how you can become a patron and help make this show possible. This is the Citadel Cafe, episode number 325 for Wednesday, July 10th, 2019. My name is Joel Duggan, and the Citadel Cafe is where my friends and I hang out to talk about the geeky stuff that we are into. Joining me this evening, Mr. Lou Page. He is the co-host of Zombies Ate My Podcast and Busy Zombie Lord on all the social media that matters. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me again. It must be the second Wednesday of the month.
It is indeed, and it is very much a Wednesday in summer. You and I were chatting a little bit pre-show about how much we've been enjoying the beautiful summer weather lately. I know we're not supposed to talk about it, but it's been beautiful, and I've been outside all the time. So, funny enough, I have not been doing very many geeky things because they usually involve screens, and I've not been inside.
I have been the opposite, sir. It has been too hot to go outside here, so I've been spending a lot of time inside.
There is that delicate balance, isn't there? We had that last week as well, where I unfortunately just found it too hot to do anything. Like I couldn't even think, so I wasn't doing anything at all of interest. Although I have to say, I'm trying to find a way to light my balcony, because at night it's really nice to sit outside. It's cooler, of course, outside than it is inside my apartment. And I want to do something like read instead of look at my phone. Because two things. One, I don't need to spend more time on my phone. And two, the light from the phone attracts bugs. So a book would not. And if there was a light like up high inside my apartment, maybe shining out, then the bugs might be attracted to something not me.
Yeah.
And then I'd be able to read outside. So I haven't quite sorted that out yet.
We've been having an awful bug problem here. I actually have my house sprayed for bugs just all summer, and I'm still finding them getting into the house and stuff because there's just that many of them.
Wow.
And I'm like, we had to actually call the bug people and be like, hey, can you come back and spray again? And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, they're back.
Wow. I mean, I'm on a third floor of an apartment building. So while some bugs do get inside, they're usually the flying variety as opposed to the creepy crawlies.
Yeah.
But I have to say that I have removed two rather large spiders from the apartment. I don't know where they came from, but they were large enough that, and I'm not scared of spiders. Like, they don't really bug me. But I would like to make sure that they're not going to like bite me in my sleep sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately you don't get spider powers. So I've removed two, and they were sizable enough for me to kind of, not the most pleasant thing. And then today, and this is the frat boy story of the week. I was doing the dishes, and I had been barbecuing, so I had been in and out of the apartment, and something must have flown in when I had the door open, and something came at my head in the kitchen, and I'm assuming it was a flying ant or something. It was huge, and it went right by my head, and it sounded like a helicopter, like just like whoop, 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 sort of thing. And without missing a beat, I unraveled the dish towel from over my shoulder and took a snap at it just for giggles. Right, first try, nailed it. It's just like it was like a Miyagi moment. Just like bam, bye bye.
we luck out in my house. We had a big old horsefly in the house yesterday. And we have the kitten. So the kitten went to town chasing the fly all evening. And eventually she caught it. So no more fly.
My best friend growing up, we used to vacation. I used to go down for his birthday in August. And he had a trailer on a beach. And that's where his family spent the whole summer. So I would go down and visit for a week. And his birthday would be that week. And there'd be a barbecue and a party and all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, he had this little like Chihuahua poodle mix. Not he did, his parents did. It was a terrible dog. And it would also chase bugs in the summertime. And whenever it would catch them, it would eat them. And they would be the most awful crunching noise. It was
That's the
just,
kitten.
ugh.
And I say kitten. She's 1 year old and 15 pounds.
Right. So,
So
cat.
she's bigger than a house cat. She's bigger than a dog.
Right. Yeah, some of the dogs. I'm not sure what it is. I'm a big dog person, and I don't see any big dogs in my neighborhood. I go for a run almost every day, and all of the animals that I encounter are like purse-sized dogs, and it hurts my heart because I just, even if I saw a golden retriever in a window somewhere, it would be refreshing. But nope, it's all these little yappy terrier mixes, and it's like, ugh, I can't.
No, I was actually showing photos at work the other day of my kitten because a bunch of the women I work with all know we have two cats. They're like, "You got a kitten last year, didn't you?" Yeah, yeah. How big is she now? And then I have a photo on my phone, and it's literally me standing in my hallway, holding her stretched out,
Oh
and
wow.
she's the length. She's the entire length from wall to wall in the hallway,
That's a
and
large cat.
she's large. And she's a giant ball of fluff, and so it makes her look even bigger than she actually is. And they just went, "That's not a cat." I went, "No, no, it's not."
I mean, I'm definitely more of a dog person, but mostly because I'm allergic to cats, and I've seen some really interesting large cat breeds lately. Just kind of like
Yeah, she's
Facebook
a
spam, that sort of thing.
Mabel is a full-bred ragdoll.
And
They're
yeah,
they're huge.
those are big cats. There was
Yeah.
one, I can't remember the name of it. It's the German word for wolf, I think. But
Yep.
there's a werewolf cat, and which is
Yes,
it's the
that is a
nickname for it. There's no,
it,
it's not a dog at all. It just
it's
looks
a
like a
it's a,
werewolf.
it's a that's a new breed actually out
Yeah,
of Tennessee.
yeah. There's only something like
A couple dozen of them.
seven breeders in the whole world, and
Yeah.
you have to. The cat itself costs like 2,000 to $2,500.
Yeah,
But it,
it basically the guy found several cats online that all have the same genetic deformity,
hmm
and then he interbred them, and the breeding of them just makes more of the cats with this deformity.
yeah,
And the deformity is not debilitating; it's just their hair and the way they look is all the same.
yeah, yeah, because it's not a disease. It's just a genetic kind of not
Yeah,
dis, abnormality. I think that's the
normality.
best way.
Yes.
Yeah, the Lykoi, Lykoi is the name of the
Yep.
kind of cat, and they don't grow hair around their snout or their eyes, so it gives them that kind of like werewolf, kind of like classic '50s werewolf
A-
look, where
and
they've got
and
skin around their snout.
and their fur is wiry. It's not soft.
Yeah, and it looks like they kind of. It said in the article that I read this morning that they have kind of like a growth pattern where, over the course of their lives, they'll have some courses where they'll have patchy fur, and there's nothing wrong. It's just that they don't have an undercoat. So where
Yeah.
your cat will shed but look essentially the same all the time, uh, the Lakoi will, when it sheds, it actually looks kind of like disheveled and patchy.
Uh,
Um, they're neat looking
believe
cats. They're also big.
believe it or not, my ragdolls do not have an undercoat
Oh,
either.
don't they? Okay.
But they have so much fur in general, you can't tell they don't have an undercoat.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting. It's weird because it's a unique
I,
looking
I
cat.
I
They're
tried to
cool looking.
convince my wife to get one of those, but she thinks they're too ugly.
Yeah, they're not. I don't know. They're not cute. You
No.
could possibly find one that would be handsome, but I don't know about cute and cuddly. Like they're an aggressive looking cat, regardless of how friendly they are. And apparently, even in the article, they have a demeanor akin to dogs. Like they
Yeah.
prefer. They're quite content on their own. They're an interesting breed.
That's the way ragdolls are, which is one of the reasons why we got one.
Nice. Very cool. Well, before we get into what we've been watching, we actually have some listener email that I'd like to address. We don't get it very often, which is why I bump it to the top of the show whenever we do get some. And it's from Sarah, or Cosmic Dancer, in the Discord. I just wanted to drop a quick email to my favorite geeky podcast to say that I've been really enjoying the book talk and recommendations recently. If possible, this is something I would love to see more of on the podcast. I'm always up for more book recommendations. As a member of the Discord, it would be great if we could set up a book discussion topic in there as well, or maybe even a little online book club. where we can read and talk about a book a month. That might be too much, she says. Well, yeah, people could participate or not participate as they see fit, but I don't see any problems with putting a what we've been reading section into the Discord. It just keeps things organized. Right now, I think that some book recommendations have just been thrown in the general chat. It's not a large Discord. So they don't tend to get lost, but some people might want to go back through and check out what people have been reading. So that's a pretty good idea. I recently added an art section as well in the Discord for people to share their art or art inspiration. So we've got some things coming, but that's cool. Yeah, I'm happy that you're enjoying the book picks, and I think it's something I'd like to do more of on the podcast as well. I know Megan had a book last week. I have another book to recommend to people this week. And I think that, especially where summertime people are spending a little bit more time outside, maybe less time in front of screens, that having some extra books around on the podcast is not a bad idea. Do you do much reading, Lou? I know that we talk awful lot about shows and video games and stuff.
I do not do nearly as much reading as I used to. But I do audiobooks. So I'm probably going to have at least an audiobook recommendation next time I'm on.
Oh, cool. Well, I mean, and those are the kind of things where people can then choose. Like they can listen to the audiobook or they can just go out and buy the novel and go from there, right?
Yeah. My problem is I was an Audible subscriber for like 5 or 6 years, and I was doing the 2 credits a month. And so I just kept taking books and taking books and taking books. And then I would listen to like 1, sometimes 2 of the books after like 6 months. And so I have this buildup and surplus of books in my queue that I'm like, oh, right. I got like 200 books in there. I need to read some. Yeah.
Well, in a way I mean, 200 is a lot, but in a way that's kind of good in that you have like a to-do list, you have a selection,
Yes.
things that you are already interested in. You've already picked them up on your credit because they were something that kind of like perked your interest.
Yeah.
For me, I switched from a novel. I'm reading a graphic novel right now. I don't have a whole lot to say about it because I'm only on chapter 2. But it is an all-ages fantasy adventure graphic novel called Skyheart by Jake Parker. And I've met Jake. We're not close friends, but I would call him an industry friend. He's another artist, an independent artist based out of Utah. Last month, I think he now has moved his family to Arizona this summer. But he kickstarted Skyheart quite a while ago, and I've had this delivered to me for ages, and I just have not got around to reading it because I tend to read outside more. So I decided that once I finished the Practical Demon Keeping novel from a couple weeks ago, that I would move on to something a little bit more art related. And so I started Skyheart, and I like it so far. It's a really interesting concept. The idea is, so far, it's based on the planet Earth, which is a planet that's mostly air. So the continents kind of float above an air core, which is kind of cool. So there's like airships and planes, and everything kind of has like a Star Wars meets World War II kind of vibe to it. Very similar to any of the aerial vehicles from what was that Peter Jackson film with the moving cities? What was that called?
Mortal Engines?
Mortal Engines, yes. So not the cities so much, but the planes, the very unique designs for any of the aircraft in Mortal Engines seems to have a similar kind of vibe in terms of like that steampunky, futuristic kind of stuff happening. And it follows the adventures of this kid named Wake. And his so far I've only just met him in the book because the first chapter was mostly kind of like a prelude, like a setup sort of thing. But it's cool. It's very inventive. It's like I said, it's got that Star Wars adventure vibe. It's all ages, so if you're wanting to pick it up for yourself, or if you want to share it with kids or family, then you know it's going to be safe. Jake is generally a pretty PG, family-friendly type artist anyway. But we'll have links to all that. It's all at jakeparker.com. And also, he is continuing the series. He's producing more than just this graphic novel, and he has a Patreon set up, and that's at patreon.com/Jake Parker. So if you check it out and you like it, then you can always help him make more, which I think is always a really, really cool thing.
Looks very cool.
Yeah, there's oh gosh, what is the name? The Tengu. I think of course, there's all these different made up races and things, so it's kind of
Oh
hard
yeah.
to remember the pronunciations, and you pronounce it in your head, but then to say it out loud is completely different. But
Yep.
the Tengu, I think I'm pronouncing that right, are these really cool feathered, eyeless bad guys. Think
Yeah.
think like a personified version of the fell beasts from Lord of the Rings, but smaller,
Yeah.
like person size. So they have this weird long neck thing, and they're all covered in feathers instead of like leathery skin, and they have these black lightning weapons. It's all very, again, like, I have not seen anything like it. I feel like Jake went out of his way to make sure that he was inspired by, but not copying anything that's out there, because
Yeah.
there's no real through line. Like, you get a vibe, you get a design vibe that some of it sort of feels like Phantom Menace, in that it's got a lot of rounded edges, and it has a lot of that kind of like elongated aerial, look to it. But I mean, of course, everything that flies is going to be kind of like aerodynamic and elongated and stuff like that. So, but there's no real like, oh yeah, I've seen that before. Like, it's not a lightsaber or a blaster weapon or anything like that. I think the only thing that was pretty basics was, I think that the weapons that they used, like handguns, were basically handguns. Like, it's just a blam 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 sort of
Yeah.
thing. But they're inconsequential. They're not focused on in the story. The things that get your attention, and things that, when they fire these little black lightning weapons that they have with backpacks, like, all the backpacks look different, and there's always like this warm-up hiss and then this big crack, when the thing goes off. So it's a little bit more dramatic because it's such a unique look to everything. It's very, very cool. Well, I don't have
Very
a
neat.
whole lot this week to talk about. I am watching Stranger Things season 3, but I am not finished, so I am not going to really drop any heavy opinions. And I, of course, will be spoiler free. However, I am really enjoying the season. I find it tighter writing. I find it funnier. And I like that they've segmented everybody off into their own little adventure. And they're all part of a big story, but you're getting different pieces of that big story from different characters.
That's good to hear, because I have not started this yet. We just haven't had time to actually sit down and binge watch a single show. And we know that when we sit down for this, it's going to be like 2 evenings and we'll be done. So we've been like, no, we'll save that. I'm going to be on vacation again in a couple of weeks. And we're like, well, maybe we'll save that for vacation. So hearing you have positive things to say about this is really good, because I have not been hearing positive things. There's been a lot of people griping about a lot of stuff involved in the show online, and I've kind of been like, I think you're all taking this way too seriously.
And that's something that you need to go into this with, in that I can't remember, unfortunately, when the first one was set. It was like 81 or 79 or something along those lines. I can't quite remember. This one is set in 1984.
I was going to say, I think the first season is 1980.
Right. Okay. So that would make sense. This is 1984. I mean,
Yeah.
you are in the heart of the corny 80s, like neon mall 80s. And it does not try to hide that at all. It embraces it full force. And it's no longer, the show doesn't take itself seriously, not that it ever really did, but it's something that I like about this season that they lost me on last season. Was last season there was an awful lot of stuff that wasn't the core cast. Like, there was new people, everybody was
Right.
separated. It was very different storylines. Whereas this, they are introducing new characters, but if you have one new character, they are now traveling throughout the story with 3 of the existing core people, right?
Right.
So if you have 2 or 3 new people, they're always with the core folks. Of like, whether it's Nancy and her boyfriend, or whether it's Mike and his crew, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I really, really like that. It works much, much better. There's a couple of kids in it, like the really young kids, like the little sisters and things like that are just like, well, whatever, take it or leave it. They're just their dialogue
Yeah.
is just written to be funny.
throwaway.
Well, it's written to be funny, but it's try too hard because like no
Yeah.
child, no kid that's 10 would ever speak like that. Um, and I think that in a way, I mean, they're good actors. I'm not going to say that they're not good actors because there's I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but there is one girl that's traveling around in the mall with some of the other kids, and she's one of the younger sisters, and she's like overly dramatic. If I could compare her dialogue, it would be to Hermione from the first Harry Potter. Like she's
Hmm.
that kind of kid,
Yeah.
which is fine. But it's one of those things where you're like, okay, that this is that trope. But the whole show is a trope, so you can't get mad at any tropes, right? Because the whole
Right.
thing, it's a giant '80s horror trope. Which I don't normally get into horror movies, but for whatever reason, I feel like Stranger Things is a little bit more. It's a little bit more sci-fi for me than it is horror,
Yeah.
and they're poking fun at some major franchises in the '80s, and it works very very well, and they're wrapping it up in their own kind of flavor just enough to be like, okay, all right, I see what you're doing, but this is still unique enough that I don't know where you're going with it. So
Yeah.
that's cool.
That, and I believe they've announced officially they're only going to do one more season.
So I didn't even know that. The way that this has been going for me, I was assuming this might be the last, but it's not because of anything that's happened. And I won't reveal anything here. Again, no spoilers. I am really sick and tired of people putting spoilers for these kind of shows online a day after they've been released. Like this is at least 8 episodes. It might even be 10. I can't remember.
It's only
But
been out like a week.
yeah, it's not even. It's a week tomorrow. It came out on the 4th of July. It looks like there's 8 episodes. So there's 8 hours of television. And while that's easy to do with the show because it's very appealing and you definitely want to know what happens next. No, not everyone, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say most people don't watch all 8 hours in a day. And so the fact that there's all these spoilers, whether it's people posting reactions, they say no spoilers, but when you're posting a reaction and you're passionate about that reaction, that's a spoiler to me. I'm also, because of my circles, seeing a lot of fan art reactions to this, and I'm having to scroll them like past, like ASAP, like, oh wow, don't look at that, like that looked like that might have been 11 in that image. I have to go past that, or maybe that's a picture. You recognize Hopper's shirt because he has a very specific shirt in this season, and you're like, oh, that's Hopper's shirt. Scroll away. I don't want to see it because I don't understand. Like, I mean, it's only been a few days, and I really wish that people would just kind of like put a kibosh on the spoiler thing. It drives me a little bit nuts.
I, I have a suggestion for you, sir.
Stay off the internet. Yeah.
Stay off the internet.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
that's kind of I think anybody that's listened to me on the show before knows I don't care about spoilers. Spoil all you want. They don't bother me at all. But when I go into this in a couple weeks, I literally know next to nothing. I don't know the plot. I know there's a mall. I know Carrie Elwes is playing the mayor. That's about the extent of what I know about going into this season.
mm-hmm. He's really good as the mayor too, by the way. Like it almost took me a minute to recognize him. I was like, I think I know who that. Yeah, that is him. Okay, cool. It's definitely what I like so much about Stranger Things, especially the adult characters, is that all of the tertiary characters, like all the non-main characters, are like cartoons. They're so
Yes.
out there, but they're out there in the way that like the principal
The kid would view their
yeah,
adult.
but it's like the
yeah.
principal from the Back to the Future films, right? Like, I mean, he's real. He's not realistic, but he's an archetype. Like he's the
Yes.
authoritarian. He's the stern, bald guy. He's the same in all the movies that he was in, right? He's a I guess a stereotype, but it works. It's not so far that you're like, oh God, this is so corny. For whatever reason, with Stranger Things, there's a really good balance, and I think it's because the kids, when they're not being 14, doing typical 14 stuff, which thankfully they don't do very long. Once things start to get rolling with the overall story, they're the ones that are talking the most sense because they're the ones that really know what's going on. And there are some adults as well. You've got Hopper, and I can't remember the other girl's name. She's the mom of. Gosh, I'm trying to remember her name.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about. Winona Ryder's character.
Winona Ryder. Thank you, Winona Ryder. I'm trying to remember her character's name. No, not Nancy. Wow, that's terrible. Anyway, I even have IMDb open, but I've not opened any of the actual episodes because it lists how many episodes people are in, and I don't want to know if anybody dies. So I'm not actually opening IMDb. Anyway, I highly recommend. I am probably about halfway or maybe more than that through the series, and it has been thoroughly enjoyable. It does take, I want to say, an episode and a half to get going. I would say maybe the last minute or two of the first episode kind of makes you go, okay, all right, cool, I'm in. But really, things start to get thick in episode 2, which is good because sometimes Netflix takes longer, and there's not that many episodes, so I'm glad they didn't have to take their time. There's also, they don't need any setup, which is nice. There's no character setup. There's no backstory because it's season 3. Everybody knows who everybody is, right? All the viewers are like, yeah, I'm on board. Like, I like season 1 and 2, so just give me more of that, and that's what they do. So
right, and if there's a side character that's like a side plot, they can do that while they're telling the main story.
Yes, there's no put the brakes on and find out who this character is. That character shows up in like little bits in like episode 2 and then 3. And then, now they have a major part in episode 4. But like I said, they're with those other 3 characters. So instead of exposition, you get conversation, which is how I prefer to get my character development, which I quite enjoy.
You've got me excited for it.
Oh, dude, yeah, no, it's fun. It's very, very enjoyable. I'm happy to see that Stranger Things is doing so well, and happy to see that the kids, the actors involved, are getting good reviews and accolades for their work because it's fantastic.
Yeah, they're probably my favorite part of that show.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like there's kid actors in it, but they don't seem like kid actors. It's really well done. I would say like early on in the Harry Potter films, those kids were a lot younger than these kids, and so you feel like they're kind of kiddie. But later on, the Harry Potter films, you forget that Hermione, and like you don't think of them as kid actors anymore. You just think about them as the characters, and that's what I find with all the folks in Stranger Things.
So, I saw Spider-Man Far From Home, but I can't talk about it because anything I say will be a total spoiler.
I figured as much. I'm seeing a lot of people that like it just saying I liked it and that's it, and they can't then won't say anything else. So I appreciate that.
But I've been playing a lot of video games, and there was a Steam sale last week, so I picked up something that's been on my wish list for probably about 6 months. There's a Dungeons and Dragons competitor. They call themselves Pathfinder. There was a lot of debate years ago with D&D changing rules and everything. And a group of people got together and just said, you know what, we're going to use the old rule set and we're going to make our own universe and do our own thing with it. And they founded Pathfinder. And it's kind of been kicking Dungeons and Dragons' butt for a couple of years now. But there's no video games. They have some books, some storybooks. They kickstarted a game like 2 years ago, and it came out a couple months ago, and it's called Pathfinder Kingmaker. And it takes place in the same Pathfinder campaign setting, and it's got all the classes and all the stuff that's in it. But it is an entire video game that is basically you playing Dungeons and Dragons with a bunch of NPC characters that you control and your hero. And it's hundreds of hours. Wow. Hundreds. It's a story, and it's about 7 chapters. I have just started chapter 3, and I am 60 hours in.
Holy crap.
It is probably one of the most extensive game worlds I've played in a game in a while. You make your hero, so your character is whatever your personality is and the choices you make with him. But the beginning of the game is like the traditional Dungeons and Dragons. Some lord has gathered you all together. He's got a quest for you. And the plot is there is a piece of land that's been disputed for hundreds of years between like 5 kingdoms. And the lords of this kingdom have said, you know what? We're done fighting. All we want is a hero to go in there, clean up the bandits, take over, and whichever hero leads the biggest, whichever hero can do that, will make you the Baron. You can run the land however you want, collect the taxes, do whatever you want. So the whole first chapter of the game is you kind of starting your adventure, going into this land where you don't really know where anything is, and picking up a couple of other adventurers along the way that join you, finding out somebody is a traitor amongst you and becomes a villain. And and by the end of chapter 1, you're like, okay, so this has probably got like maybe 2-3 more chapters, and it's like, no, not at all. Get ready. You're in for the long haul. Demon gods are being resurrected, and there's ancient beings that are trying to double cross you, and at every turn you're saving up gold so you can build your kingdom bigger and building small cities, and there's part of it's city planning, part of it's quest making. At every turn I'm just completely enamored with this game.
It looks really cool. It reminds me sort of like a top-down Diablo type thing.
It is, but everything is done at your own pace. All the fighting is turn-based, but it's done real time. It's done real time, so you can pause the game at any point by hitting spacebar, and then give each of the other characters a command. Like you want them to use a particular, you want them to use a particular spell or ability.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, they'll do that, and then they'll go back to their regular action. And then you can pause again and tell them to, no, somebody needs a heal. Go over here and heal that guy. And then it will continue to do that. And so it's almost action-y, but there's a turn-based aspect to it.
Mm-hmm. It looks very pretty, I have to say. Like for a top-down game, like it looks very. Well, it looks very Dungeons and Dragons in terms of like that kind of high fantasy game where there's like lots of, purple magic bolts and glowing red bad guys, and looks very kind of like atmospheric, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah, it borrows a lot of its aesthetics right from the books of the actual tabletop game. And the best I compare it is it feels like somebody borrowed the engine from Diablo 3. That's the in-game graphics. It feels like it's that cartoony look, but your characters are beautifully hand-drawn in like their portraits and in their screen. You have a character creation screen and you have a character screen for each hero.
Right.
So you can look at their character sheet just like you would if you were playing the game. And so each of your heroes has one. You make their choices as each hero and party member levels up. In most Dungeons and Dragons games, your hero maxes out at level 20. This game is supposed to take you from when you finish the main campaign and the main story, and the game is done with all 7 chapters, you're supposed to be somewhere between level 17 and level 20 when the game is done. You go from a first level hero in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign and play basically an entire campaign with them.
Wow.
Till retirement.
Cool. I mean, it sounds great. I've heard of Pathfinder, like the tabletop game.
Yeah.
Because I think, was it like D&D? It was like versions 4,
3.5,
3.5, and 4. Like somewhere around there is when I started to hear about Pathfinder. Yeah, I thought D&D kind of had a resurgence. I think it's the 5th edition now.
The 5th edition has had a resurgence, but there's still a pile of people that really like Pathfinder.
Mm-hmm.
When D&D went to 4th edition, instead of making the game role-playing, they tried to turn everything into a video game you play with figures on a board.
Oh.
When your characters leveled up, you didn't learn new skills or new traits, or you didn't learn that, I can cast this spell. You learned, now you have special move A or B. Which do you want? And it drove a lot of people away because that's not what they wanted from Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And they scrapped 4th edition real fast.
Yeah, I've only played really seriously the 5th edition. I think those the last time I've tried it, and I miss it. I wish I had the time and a group to actually do it. I know Megan partakes quite often. She has I think it's a Wednesday evening that she plays at least in one campaign, if not 2. And she really enjoys it, especially as a writer and creative in that way. the role playing aspect of it, I know, is something that she really enjoys and is very, very into. You guys would probably have a hoot talking about like Pathfinder or the tabletop, or even the Kingmaker video game, which you made a note here. It's available for Mac.
Yes, it is, which is one of the reasons I always feel bad when I talk about games with you because it almost always is never on Mac. And this game is specifically on Mac and Linux.
Cool. Yeah, something for everybody.
It was one of their requests when they kickstarted it that there were a bunch of people that were like, if you're going to make this, we want it on Mac too. So it's a Mac game as well. And I will say it's not very cheap. That's one of the reasons why I haven't bought it, because my goal was when I bought it, I was going to buy it along with all of the DLC. And that was going to be like $80. And I was like, oh, not spending $80. And the Steam Summer Sale just ended, and I got everything for 75% off.
Wow.
So it was like $30 for everything.
There is an edition linked here. I mean, unfortunately, when you look for it on Steam, they list like 6 or 8 different games, and some of it's DLC. But so right now on Steam, what's your basic purchase look like for
your basic
Pathfinder?
Purchase for the standard edition is $40. It's $39.99.
Right. So well, that's still cheaper than most like AAA $60 titles, and given the amount of hours, like that does not seem like a stretch.
And then the Imperial Edition, which is it and all the DLC, is $80.
Right. Yeah. So, but you could still purchase the base game, see if you like it, you know. Or
yep. Then they regularly have the season pass on sale, which if you do that, you can usually get everything pretty cheap.
Nice. Yeah. So if you don't have the 80 and you want to spend the 40, then you can buy it and then look for that season pass to go on sale if you like it and you manage to get through all the content before it.
And it's a lot of content. I actually found that I was in some dungeon at one point, and it felt like it was getting way too hard for me. And I realized it was a piece of DLC that I had unlocked early. And I was like, oh, I shouldn't be in here right now. No wonder everything in here is killing me in like 2 hits.
Run away.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I will say, it's not an easy game. I've made wrong choices and wandered into the wrong dungeon. And next thing you know, I'm killed with 1 hit. And I'm like, oh, this is not where I'm supposed to go right now. And it didn't tell me that. Okay, so I have to go back and reload an old save. I'm constantly saving in this. It's that kind of game. But I'm okay with that because I knew that going in.
Yeah, that's a good tip though. If your people are new to this kind of game and you know they're used to Diablo and if this is a little bit different than that, then it's good to have that kind of information going in. Speaking of tabletop games though, what else have you been up to?
Okay, so I don't normally talk about this, but I love board games. And a couple months ago, I had a Amazon gift card that was burning a hole in my pocket. And I decided to pick up a board game that's been on my Amazon wish list for months, or years actually. Gloomhaven. It is a tabletop board game that half the box when you open it is sealed, and you do not open it until the story in the game tells you to.
Interesting.
It is a 25-pound box.
Oh my gosh.
I literally had to go on Amazon and buy an organizing kit to organize the pieces inside the box.
You and Alistair would have a field day. Yeah, he has the same thing with his Star Trek board games.
Yeah. And I don't normally do that for any of my board games, but this one there's so many pieces that it tells you that playing one quest of the game should take you and your friends between an hour and 2 hours. They're not talking about setup.
Oh, right. They're talking about gameplay.
Gameplay. And we found that setting up was literally taking us an hour.
Wow.
We'd do our quest, which took 2 hours. And then we'd probably do a second quest, which was like another hour of clean. And I went, and then we'd have to put it all back in the box. And I went, you know what? We need to make this way easier. So I bought an actual organizer for the inside of the box that breaks everything down into like, oh, you can set this all up in 5 minutes. And I was like, oh, I wish they had done that when they sold this game.
Hmm.
But the idea is like Dungeons and Dragons. You're a bunch of heroes in a weird sci-fi fantasy place called Gloomhaven, and the politicians are corrupt, but nobody's really good, nobody's really bad. You're just a couple of people with. When you pick your hero, there's something like 15 different classes in the game that you can make for your hero. Uh, you get to pick between the first five in the box. All the others are sealed. And as you, when you pick your hero, you also draw a card, and it's your character's plot. Like my character is, I picked the mechanic, and I'm mostly a healer and like ranged archer. And all my stuff is like I throw out little robots to chase stuff and blow up, or I throw a dart that hits somebody, or if anybody gets too close, I have a flamethrower I can pull out and shoot them in the face. And it's all hex based boards that you move your figures around on, and you make all your decisions with cards rather than dice.
Oh, interesting.
Um, and it's a very unique feel. It's a very unique thing. But as you play the game, your character, my character, had to draw his plot line, and my plot line is someone killed a family member, and I'm out for revenge. And so, as we complete quests, when I complete quests that are in certain areas of the world map, you actually have to unfold a world map which has nothing on it as the game begins, and put stickers down as you unlock quests on the board map.
Hmm. So does it have much replayability then? Because
Uh,
you're sticking things down on the board and revealing
the, the,
things?
I knew ahead of time that this is supposed to be you play it once and you're done. I bought the extra sticker pack, which comes with removable and reusable stickers. So, and it comes with a checklist piece so that you don't need to write on any of the boards. So,
Right, that's cool. Because it means that you could play it through and then play it with friends that haven't played it, and then to make it new for you, you could just choose a different class that you don't know.
yes,
Nice.
and there are something between there's like 15 classes. There is 92 or 95 quests that you can go on in the game as you play.
God, why not 98 cheapskates? Gosh.
Oh, there's an expansion that adds another 25.
Of course there is.
And but you can't play the expansion until you've beaten the main game.
Right.
So I have not bought that yet. I'm like, I'll get it down the road.
Right.
But every quest takes you like between an hour to 2 hours. And my friends and I have been playing it on Saturdays about every other Saturday for about 2 months now. We've done about 8 or 9 quests. And the big goal is when your character completes his story arc, like when I get my revenge, there's an envelope in the box that's called the black dot. My character gets to open the black dot and do whatever the black dot says.
Cool. Now, is it that black dot specifically for the mechanic, or is there?
It is for my character's quest only.
Okay,
and
cool.
It doesn't tell you that until you draw that card. So you may never open that envelope ever.
Right.
If you didn't draw that story arc.
Oh, okay. So it's not about the mechanic, it's about the revenge.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some of the other character classes, there's treasure chests in the dungeon, and if you don't open it, the store never gets the item that you found. So you'll never be able to wear that special armor because that one card never gets unlocked except there's like maybe 2 points in the story where you can get that armor. So it's full of things. You will never play all 95 quests in one go. Sometimes your characters will okay. The most recent story arc that I just did in the game is we did this quest for a merchant and brought her back this item that was supposedly stolen from her, and come to find out it wasn't stolen. She needs it to overthrow the government in the city. And so at that point, you and your heroes need to make a choice. Are you going to side with her and help her overthrow the lazy city guard? Or are you going to help the city guard defend against the undead army she's now banging at the gates with? And you can only pick one of those quests. And once you do, it changes the direction the game goes. Next time, there's like 5 more quests we won't play because we went against her.
Hmm. Interesting. It's cool that you've
And,
got a group of friends that are so into it, and because you can pace it out, because it's the kind of thing where you can kind of, what not the way that you've purchased it, but essentially you can kind of really only play it once before you start to I guess clue in. But because you're only doing it once a week, you can kind of space that out.
yeah, and it's not like it's a long game.
Yeah, no,
Like
it feels like it.
it's supposed to take something but like 160 hours to finish or
Oh
more.
man, wow.
So this has become, well, okay, we're gonna do one quest to Gloomhaven, then we'll go to the movies, and that's been kind of our Saturdays.
Still though, that's cool. I mean, and how many people are playing? Is it?
There's 3 of us.
Oh, that's right on.
Once in a while, there's a fourth person, but he's not there every week.
Right.
And and when I complete my vengeance quest, my character gets retired, and I get to take one of the other classes from the game. And if it's one, if we've completed certain quests, it will unlock some of the other classes.
Oh, fun. Okay, cool.
So, like, I could end up playing another mechanic like I did this time, or I could take the brute guy that does all melee attacks, or there's a thief, there's a magic user. The 5 basic classes are pretty. The beginning classes are basic, but then there's another class that's a guy that rides on a wolf, and he's like a little midget. There's a Cthulhu guy that summons monsters to fight for him. Like some of it's full of like weird creatures and stuff. And one of the main characters that one of my friends is playing as, he's called a Heartless, and it's like a rock guy, and they're born with like an ice or a fire or like an elemental thing in their chest, and he has chosen to go without and ripped out his own heart.
Oh wow.
And so his quest line has something to do with like trying to cleanse the world of his elemental brethren or something like that. And so it's everything in this game is just like every time we make a decision, we're like, wow, that's not what we were going to thought was going to happen. I mean, when you start the game, you're in the city, and then you go, okay, I'm going to go out into the country, and we're going to go do quest number 3. Okay, there is an actual deck of cards called the road cards. And before you get to your adventure, you flip over a road card. And as a group, it'll give you a decision. Like one of ours was, you see this guy in a flying machine coming up over the hill, and it's crashed. What do? And then as a group, you're given 2 choices. You can go over and see if he needs help and help him, or you can mug him and leave him to die.
Nice.
And depending on what you as a group decide, changes the outcome. And sometimes the outcome is nothing happens.
Right.
Sometimes the outcome is city guards find you, and now you have to fight. Guess what? You're not going on that quest. You've got to get out a map board, and now you've got to fight the city guard in an alleyway.
Right.
We've had that happen too.
I was about to say this sounds like you might be speaking from experience.
Yes. Yes, we were found over a dead body in an alleyway of a guy we didn't kill, and then the city guard blamed us, and we had to kill him.
I was about to say, for those of you that are wondering, if you happen to be flying a flying machine and you see Lou, go the other way.
But we literally just thought that this was going to be another board game, but every week we're like, so, are we going to go play some Gloomhaven? And the 3 of us are like, yeah, we're ready to next quest, yeah.
Nice, that's great though. It's nice that it has those kind of grips. I haven't yet found a game that will pull me in like that. I've been playing a lot of, well, like Minecraft and those kind of games, like sandboxy, non-narrative, no RPG. I think the last RPG I played would have been, I guess Assassin's Creed. That's like an RPG, isn't it? It's like a third-person action,
yeah,
sort of thing. And then I found that very enthralling. Like I was on board for that entire thing. And I know I've used it as an example on the show a number of times, but that's the last kind of adventure game that I played. Well, I shouldn't say that. I've been playing Borderlands 3 or no, sorry, Borderlands 2, because I'm excited about Borderlands 3. So I've been playing Borderlands 2, but that, I know, it's the adventure there is a little bit thinner than the story in Assassin's Creed. I'm much more invested when I was playing in Assassin's Creed than I am in Borderlands, because Borderlands for me it's more about the loot than it
It's
is
about
about
the
the
loot, it's
story.
about the jokes, and the story is pretty much just go here, do this, go here, do this,
Yeah, I
go
mean
here, do this.
the story is okay. I mean it's inventive. The post apocalyptic world and that kind of vibe is cool, and who these people are and Handsome Jack and all those kind of like that. The personalities are unique, but I can't say that the story is overall a driving force. I don't go back to Borderlands 2 to find out what happens next. It's more like, well, what do I have to shoot next, as opposed to like what the actual outcome is going to be. And like you said, the jokes. I enjoy hearing what the new enemies are going to be screaming at me while I attack them, because it's a lot of like, did he just say what I think he said? And it's like really inappropriate stuff, but also very funny. So yeah, it's a lot of that.
I actually hear they just added a free batch of DLC to Borderlands 2.
Yes, the last time I logged into Steam when I was picking up City Skylines last week, I saw a notification about Borderlands 2. I didn't really get into it because I haven't been playing much, but there were a few additions, I think. I think it was like my Steam library was saying, this is ready to download, that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's a whole new quest line, I think. It's supposed to be like another like 20 or 30 hours of gameplay they just gave for free.
Nice. Very cool. Well, that brings us into the Internet Minute, which is brought to you by you, dear patron. If you are one of the very kind people that are backing the Citadel Cafe on Patreon, then you are helping us make the show. And if you'd like to become a member, you can go to patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. It is completely up to you. I'd like to approach it as the value for value model. If you enjoy the show and like other people get things out of it, then why not put a little bit back in? The base level is $1, and $4 a month is less than most lattes at Starbucks. So do the math and hopefully support an independent podcast in the process. We are currently at 20 patrons, which is one more than we had last month, but we are well into July and looking to increase that to 21 before the end of the month. So if you are on the fence, please feel free to email me at thecitadelcafe@gmail.com. Ask any questions that you like. In the meantime, you can always go to patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe and read about the benefits and the extra content that we have on the website for patrons. It includes, I will say, occasional bonus episodes, but also an access to the Discord, which is a lot of fun during the week. We hang out and talk about a lot of stuff. And it looks like we're going to be getting a book recommendation channel in the Discord. So, hey, you can thank Cosmic Dancer when you get there. My internet pick this week is another book, but it's not a book that you can read, which is why I didn't talk about it in the What's We're Reading section. It is Art Book 3 by Derek Loftman. Derek is a Canadian artist. I backed Art Book 3 on Kickstarter, I want to say 2018, late in the year, I think. And it arrived a while ago. I have this bad habit of backing art books. They then arrive, and then I don't have time to enjoy them. And then they sit in a box in my studio until I go, I should probably open that, which is what I did. And so I've been having my morning coffee with Art Book 3. Derek does a lot of chibi art, a lot of fan art, but also a lot of original content as well. He has some behind the scenes from his original comic Ruin World, very much a D&D inspired type adventure, which is a family-friendly comic, an all ages comic that's published by Boom Studios. Think like Diablo and Dungeons and Dragons Adventures if all of your characters were like foxes and squirrels and raccoons and pigs and stuff. Like he draws anthropomorphic, cute kind of like JRPG style characters. And I really enjoyed the art book. The art book was fantastic. It only took me a couple days to get through it, and I go through these kind of books quite slowly. Because of all the great content. But go check out Derek at derekloftman.com. And he's also Derek Loftman, Laufman, on Instagram, which is where I shared a couple of photos of the book if you are curious. Lou, do you have a pick this week?
I do, and I will warn you now, my pick is not a happy pick. It's kind of a depressing pick. It's just, it came across me, it came to me last week, and I think that I should share. I'm a big fan of YouTube game journalist Jim Sterling. People either love him or they hate him. He's a grouch. He's kind of always looking for the bad side of what's going on in video games. If you like that sort of thing, he's fun to watch. Sometimes he's into weird things with wrestling, and he dresses up in wrestling costumes. His show can be really weird, but usually a couple times a month he throws out an interesting video. And last week's video was called "The Addictive Cost of Predatory Video Game Monetization." And he basically discusses how a lot of these games are adding free-to-play mechanics even to their game you just paid $60. And he plays some clips from a guy. Give me a second and I'll give you his name. His name is Torluf Jernstrom. He runs a mobile studio. And he discusses these clips are from, I think, GDC or some European version of GDC. And he discusses his tactics for basically getting whales into his game. And he is discussing this to a room full of CEOs of other companies.
Right.
When he's talking about this. And when you play these clips and you hear the things this guy is saying, it literally will make your skin crawl. He's discussing how, no, you have to add timers to their decisions because it's got to be like a drug, and you need to make sure that they make that instant purchase before they really think about how much money they're wasting.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes over this, and he's like, you have to leave your ethics at the door, or you're not going to make any money. And Jim plays clips from this while discussing it, and then also has a couple of fans read letters he's received from people that actually have drug addictions and video game addictions and have spent like their life fortunes on these like microtransactions and games and and had to have their family like put them in rehab for video games.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, and these people don't care about you. And like I said, it's a downer, but if you're into video games, it's something people should really be aware of that's going on.
Yeah, I was listening to a recent episode of Pixels with host Patrick Beja. I believe it was episode 113. And there was an EA conversation dealing with the legislation in the EU about loot boxes and the comparison to gambling. And EA has now switched and started to call these loot box mechanics surprise mechanics instead of loot box, because loot boxes basically industry wide have got a tarnished kind of vibe to them. And Patrick presents a very balanced conversation. It's not at all clickbaity. Like he in his own words goes into comparing how loot boxes are not like gambling, but are also not always the best thing for a game, depending on how they're implemented. That loot boxes should not be bad, but how they're implemented should be looked at as either bad or good, depending on the game.
I agree with him to an extent. EA literally is gambling.
Yes,
there was an article literally yesterday about dad bought his kids FIFA. And in FIFA, one of the things you can do when you want to play the game online, I think it is, I'm not a sports guy, so I'm probably butchering this, but you can buy packs of your favorite players and favorite teams. And the guy bought his kids like 3 packages of of players, and then just kind of left them with the game. And these kids are like 7 or 8. They didn't realize that dad spent real money and started clicking. And next thing you know, his bank account and his savings account were empty. Like, the kids literally spent like $15,000 in an afternoon.
15,000?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
So FIFA is one of the games that Patrick's mentioned in his show, and I'm of course paraphrasing. Patrick does a much better job of explaining because he's a journalist and he's on top of this kind of stuff. So I'd encourage people to listen to that episode because he would also have links to the different things that he talked about there too. But yeah, the FIFA thing was brought up as a like opening up digital card packs and stuff that you're buying for real world
And
money.
the best part is these kids spent thousands of dollars. I might be exaggerating saying 15,000, but it was literally like the guy couldn't make his mortgage the next day.
Mm.
But anyway, they
But I
kids
mean,
spent thousands of dollars. They still didn't get the player they wanted.
yeah, but and I say that like that's not a good game mechanic, but it's also not the game's fault that the guy doesn't have parental controls. Like I mean, it's the kind of thing where parents, kids, gamers all have to be more aware of this kind of stuff, right?
This was done on a Switch, and Nintendo happily refunded the man his money.
Wow, that's cool. That's some good PR for
EA's
Nintendo.
response was to send the guy to a link that told him how to turn on his parental controls.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I realized that I just had the same response, but I was thinking more of a preemptive, not as a not as a post event. As a post event, you want to fix it, but as a preemptive, like, and I think that maybe again, I don't recall all of the conversation because I think I was doing something else, like working out or doing the dishes when I was listening to Pixels, but part of the conversation about EA and the surprise mechanics with the EU was about the language surrounding this kind of stuff going into purchases, so that this kind of stuff is like ridiculously clear, like, and things about posting your chances, like saying like, yes, this costs real money and you have a 1 in 100 or a 1 in 1,000 chance of getting like a super duper rare something or other. Like I'm making stuff up now because I don't have any games examples to give, but this is the kind of thing that is being focused on. And it's unfortunate because I've experienced some similar stuff, I think, way back when I was first playing Heroes of the Storm, but it was all in-game currency. It was hours you play plus wins equals in-game gold, and then you could then buy cosmetic stuff like skins and different things that could make your character and your gameplay more showy, but not exactly. I think there was real world money, but there was never anything that affected, like, for example, with the FIFA thing, you're looking for like your favorite player or the best player with the best stats. But all the stuff in the Blizzard game that I remember from Heroes of the Storm was all cosmetic. It was not like make yourself go faster by paying money, that sort of thing. It was all cosmetic. So I mean, and at the same time, like the cosmetic stuff, like talk about putting like money into something that doesn't exist. I mean, it's a costume for a digital character that you can't, like, it's in some ways, like, I even have trouble with people that spend a lot of money on like figurines and things like that. Like, it's just something that sits on your shelf. Like when I was a kid, action figures, you could play with them like they were toys, but I don't know, it's a lot of things that are, I think, as an artist and as someone that values things, I find the digital trend, like the digital cosmetic trend, very odd.
I've been burned too many times by digital online services going away and telling me, "Oh, sorry, I know you spent $100 on our game, but it's gone now."
Oh yeah,
I had that happen to me when I was a teenager, so like 25 years ago, and so now I see this stuff and I see it for what it is because I got burned back in the days of AOL, and I go, yeah, no, I'm not spending any real money on your digital thing that's going to go away in 6 months to a year when you get tired of paying for server costs. Like I see it, but some people don't understand that.
Well, and there's a whole bunch of other pressures too. Like I don't remember if I brought it up on this show. It might have been pre-show on the Spawn Chunks, but there was an article that I read, and unfortunately I don't remember the source. I believe it might have been Medium, but it was about the peer pressure of kids, and I say like, preteen, like 9, 10 to 12, 13, who are playing Fortnite.
There's a huge problem there.
And the bullying that was taking place on the school grounds when kids that were playing were not playing with like the cool skin. It's essentially like back when you and I were kids, it was like you're not wearing the cool t-shirts or you don't have the right basketball jersey or whatever. and so you're being made fun of because you're not wearing the cool clothes. That's essentially what this is, but it's not even real stuff. Like it matters even less. Not that it mattered back then, but like it matters even less now with this digital stuff. And it was a very eye-opening read.
Fortnite is unbelievable. They got in trouble, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago when John Wick 3 came out like a month or two ago, because they updated one of the skins, and he is literally John Wick. And then they went, no, it's not John Wick. You can't sue us.
Yeah, it's like Juan Lick or something. They just, it's one of those terrible ripoffs.
It literally looks exactly like. You can't not look at it and go, that's John Wick. And so, EA, I think Epic had to pull that skin because I think the studio threatened to sue them.
Yeah,
but like they do all kinds of shady things like that.
That is unfortunately all the time that we have for this week on the Citadel Cafe. You can find links to all the things that Lou and I talked about this week at thecitadelcafe.com. The show music was composed by Kevin MacLeod. You can email the show at thecitadelcafe@gmail.com or find us by name on Twitter and Facebook. And of course, you can download the podcast with your favorite podcast app. We are on iTunes, Android, Stitcher, and Spotify. But you know what? Word of mouth is always the best way to support the show. If you have friends that might like this show, then tell them about it. It's a great way to share the podcast. There are 700,000 podcasts on the internet, and the old social media, I guess, tropes of like, sharing it around just don't work like they used to. All the algorithms seem to be just not in our favor. So I'm going to ask, if you are listening and you enjoy it, tell someone about it and see how far that goes. My name is Joel Duggan. You can find everything that I am doing online at joelduggan.com. If you're interested in hiring me to do some illustration and design, then please do so. You can just email me through the site. I'm currently working on some Twitch subscription badges for Pixel Riffs. They're going to be done soon, so check out him at twitch.tv/pixelriffs. There's no E in pixel. You can find links to all that kind of stuff over at thespawnchunks.com, which is my other podcast I do about Minecraft. Everything is just my name. I'm super easy to find. Lou, where can people find you online?
The easiest place to find me is on my show, Zombies Ate My Podcast. Right now we're on a bi-weekly schedule, so every 2 weeks you can hear us discuss Fear the Walking Dead or whatever new zombie show or movie is in the works. We've got tonight we're going to talk about Fear the Walking Dead, which is probably becoming one of my favorite shows on TV. And I hate the regular Walking Dead, so that's a vast improvement. The other place you can find me is on Twitter or wherever all your social media is under the name Busy Zombie Lord.
You've been listening to the Citadel Cafe, where we are fast, easy, and cheap, but you can only pick two.